ख्वाब हो तुम या कोई हकीकत
कौन हो तुम बतलाओ
वाह,
देर से कितनी दूर करी हो और करीब आ जाओ
ख्वाब हो तुम या कोई हकीकत कौन हो तुम बतलाओ.
What do you my say? I said, I know it's. I said, what? Oh, to ya koi hakikat kaun ho tum batlao
वाह,
देर से कितनी दूर करी हो और करीब आ जाओ. So he said, what you should learn? I said, from the movies. I said, Prime Minister, take a break. Otherwise, the next.
This is an India Today exclusive. I'm being joined by the Prime Minister of Malaysia, Prime Minister Anwar Ibrahim, who's here on a bilateral visit. But there's a lot to him. A survivor. He is the epitome and personifies resilience when it comes to politics. Has seen or served in prison for a decade on 3 occasions, but has come out a survivor. Thank you so much for joining us here on India Today, sir. And I say this, that you're a survivor, is because even today, we're talking about a time when you are a part of, or you're heading a coalition government. In this day and age, we're looking at a lot of governments, including in India, where coalition politics has become part and parcel. It's almost very normal to have coalition governments. But it is also about survival. It's also about whether if you can make it work and how difficult does it get. Your unity government with UMNO and the Perikatan National, will you be able to do things in a coalition government that you actually envisage?
We have to establish the principles, the parameters, notwithstanding the earlier differences. Perikatan Nasional is called the opposition with the Islamic Party and the Malay Party. So we have to agree on some clear policy guidelines. Number 1, good governance. No tolerance for corruption. What's passed is done, it cannot be undone, Shakespeare. But then, from now on, there's zero tolerance for corruption. All procurement processes must go through proper tender. And that was agreed. And issues of race and religion must not be prominent. I mean, there are concerns, of course, ethnic minorities, the majority, marginalized groups, you have to address. But you cannot use that to incite hatred or marginalize or discriminate. Number 3, the core principles in the Constitution must be accepted. It's a form of social contract in the past, but notwithstanding that, the issue of right of vernacular languages, religious practices must be supported, not only tolerated. Now these issues are, and of course the fundamental focus should be the economy.
Okay, interesting. The same things over here. Right now, we're looking at coalition politics. You met with the leadership. We'll talk about your bilateral meeting, but you also met with a host of other leaders here in India, the leader of the opposition included. What were the conversations like? How do you see India of today?
Well, it has transformed both political, economic, social, most of it positively, but some concerns are there. And I use my close friendship with Modi ji to articulate issues of common interest, semiconductor, energy transition, digital transformation, issues that's close to his heart, and of course, a priority in our government policies, also food technology and security. And of course, some of the concerns here, he was candid and addressed these issues, which is, I think, some issues of domestic politics I have to respect, but because as close friends, we can discuss at the private level. At the bilateral level, of course, issues, education, culture, art, because to me, development is not empowering people in terms of economy, but also culture and cultural vibrancy and empowerment of culture and arts. And so this was discussed. Then with Rahul Gandhi, who's also a close family friend for a long time. I've heard his views expressed, and I explained to him the need to enhance the strategic partnership with India, notwithstanding political differences. We'll engage with everybody, but then I explained to him the strength of that sort of a collaboration between both governments, which include, of course, people, parties, and ethnic minorities. And so the BJP president, of course, bilaterally on the work of the government, but also the need to understand, to interact with them, and also to express some of our concerns. And he was, again, very kind enough to say that the engagement must continue. Some of the concerns he did explain. Because as friends, that's why to my mind, diplomacy is not about just governmental concerns or issues addressed with pious platitudes, but to address some core issues that's close to our belief. Or
What are the core issues?
the
Close
core
to
issues,
your
of course, democratic transition, issues of freedom, justice, and showing concern the welfare of the people in terms of economic development, but also the concerns expressed by, in Malaysia, for example, I explained, ethnic minorities because of the multiracial, multireligious character of our nation. And of course, this could be shared together, learning from the experience here and the problems here, as we also experience, and we also do encounter problems. But I say this because I'm a student of Indian politics, history, culture, from Thirukkural in among the Tamil-speaking people to Sri Aurobindo, and to Gandhi, to Nehru, and I did acknowledge the Prime Minister's reference to Trees with Destiny,
Yes.
which I use a lot in my speeches.
Prime Minister Nehru's golden words.
Yes.
Prime Minister, sir, there's a picture of you with Prime Minister Modi. Actually, it's a video of this warm embrace that we saw, and it's doing the rounds. It's actually become quite a viral video of the warm embrace between the two leaders. With the embrace, are you also embracing the kind of things India and Malaysia really want to do in taking relations forward? I see a massive delegation. You've come with 5 ministers, huge business delegation. But when it comes to real acquisitions, concerns with regards to trade deficit between the two countries, how were those issues addressed? What are the key takeaways there?
Well, you see, the personal camaraderie between the two prime ministers, to me, is very pertinent. It's based on your brotherly, I told you, Mary Dosti, and also the affection and trust of one another. And this must be translated into concrete programs. So we discuss all these issues, including issue of trade deficit, import, investments, and venturing into the new challenges of new technology, and gave a 3-month time frame so that the various committees at the ministerial level and the official level come back to us to ensure that these serious issues must be implemented, either yes or no or postponed. But in 3 months, we wanted to have the answer. And this is, of course, a major breakthrough in international relations, to decide
Within 3 months.
Yeah, within 3 months.
That's an important takeaway.
Geeta, this could only happen when there's that level of trust and affection.
That's true. In terms of cooperation, strategically speaking, what's the conversation? Are there any defense acquisitions that we could see, or joint exercises that the two countries would be doing? What is there on the strategic front that we can expect?
I of course, emphasize the centrality of Malaysia and ASEAN, but engaging with all forces. We have traditionally, force with Australia, New Zealand, and the United States. We have also ventured into with China. And now I told Prime Minister Modi that more so with India, because of the Indian Ocean and the need to protect our borders. And we welcome, and we have actually this minimal sort of an understanding, but I think we have to extend beyond that. And of course, procurement is important because India has advanced its capability in terms of production of weapons and armaments. It has to be very transparent, a standard process, but India should be given an opportunity to participate in this process. There are one or two some issues which we have agreed, which of course I have to then relay to the police and the army personnel for their views before we make a final decision.
On trade, is there any conversation on that front? Because there are certain areas that you'd want to be on the same page on, like the palm oil, exports from Malaysia, so on and so forth. Anything on that front that we're looking at on trade?
Well, we are fortunate because India takes a very independent and I should say professional view on palm oil, contrary to the campaign from the United States and Europe. And they have some of the companies have conducted their own research to defend their position. So that will increase. And we have also agreed to support the Indian experiment on oil palm production, seeds and whatever, in a collaborative manner. But more importantly, the new areas, digital technology, AI, which we have, for example, excel in some fields, and compared to our better ecosystem and supply chain. That is our forte and advantage because we started earlier, but then India have excelled in some fields. So I think we need to collaborate. And there was an important understanding between both our countries.
You also have first movers advantage when it comes to semiconductor chips. Anything on that front?
Yes, semiconductor, as I said, it relates to the initial area of AI and IT. In terms of semiconductor, not only in Penang, which is the base, the ecosystem is in place. And here, India is, of course, advancing that field. And some ventures have gone into that in Penang, some other areas in provinces in Malaysia. But I think with the support that we have shown for both of us, I think we need to excel this. I mean, all these things we should see phenomenal or remarkable change within 3 months. And I'm very optimistic.
Okay. But there are also areas that you would have conversations where there could be, both sides might not be on the same page. But on a positive note, is there anything on visa front that Malaysia and India could be looking at? Because we have a lot of tourism. There's a lot of tourism between the two countries. Is there anything on the visa front? You had declared visa-free entry for Indians for a year.
Yes.
Any extension or any reciprocity that you expect from India?
No, the exponential growth tourists from India. India is a beautiful country, and Malaysia has a lot to show too, and we welcome. And of course, we're not only among ethnic Indians, but then Malaysians, because they're very keen to Indian culture and arts. Not only Bollywood, but beyond that, literature, art. And I mentioned some of the great literature and writings, the great sages, which is quite familiar. We had a recent conference on Ambedkar, for example. I think outside India, probably Malaysia is the only exception organizing a conference on Ambedkar. Yeah, on social democracy, etc. So, I mean, all these things take into consideration. And the Prime Minister and the Minister of External Affairs have assured that they will reciprocate the sort of enrichment, because that would then facilitate the exchanges between our two peoples.
Now, that's a good one if there's an assurance there. But what are Malaysia's assurances when it comes to one very concerning area for India, which is Zakir Naik? I know you've made your own statements there, but is there anything that India has provided which is good enough for an extradition of Zakir Naik to India?
Well, there has been issues raised, although not this time, but then, of course, politely, the External Affairs Minister did make a reference to that. And I've said, look, we have to respect the due process. He's not been active in Malaysia. He travels outside, but he comes back to Malaysia from time to time. He has not issued any statement or any political statement that's against India or against Malaysia. So I think a number of reasons let the matter rest for a while.
He did make statements, but you were not in power then. It was
Oh,
Mr. Mohammed. So just saying that, is Zakir Naik an issue that impacts bilateral ties?
No, we do appreciate the concern expressed by some quarters here, but I think as long as he does not create issues between our countries and the security of a nation, I think we let the matter rest.
Okay. And should there be more evidence that India provides?
Yeah, of course, we are a country, we must respect the rule of law, and we will not condone any sort of transgression. Although the priority in my discussion with Prime Minister Modi, international relations, of course, in terms of security, including Indian Ocean, maritime security, which we had agreed, and the position on Ukraine, and that he's leaving to Ukraine today, I suppose, or tomorrow, yeah. And,
he's left for Poland. He'll be
visiting
tomorrow.
Ukraine. And I've also expressed, although we don't take this to combative view against Russia, and I told him about the complicity and the contradiction between how the West, and particularly Europe, view Ukraine versus Gaza. And also I talked about Gaza. He has assured that he did present the concern not only to the leaders in Palestine, but also to Netanyahu, strongly urging for a ceasefire. I mean, most of these issues we are on board.
On another internal issue, and then we'll move to the larger regional issues, Kashmir and Pakistan. Kashmir specifically had been a very important point of agenda for Prime Minister Mahathir Mohamad, the then Prime Minister. What is the position now of the Malaysian government, your government, in how India handles Kashmir and the situation between India and Pakistan?
We have not taken an open position, but in private we do, express concern, which most people express, including here, about the need to ensure that there's peace and security, and the need to reduce tensions, because any tension in any area, whether it's in Afghanistan or Kashmir or Malaysia or whatever, would invariably cause this reaction and ending suspicion and anger. But I still consider that purely a domestic issue of India. We have every right, as Indians have every right, to question some of the issues in Malaysia on a private basis, not to be deemed to be causing friction between the countries. But I wish them well. Of course, I follow from the period of Sheikh Abdullah to the son and the grandson. In fact, initially we were talking about these people, and as I told you, I met even Karan Singh, the Maharaja of Kashmir, before the last years. I've been to India quite often, the India Today conference, and then to some interviews with some newspapers, and going down to universities, not inciting students, but exchanging views with them in the past.
That's lovely. Now, moving on to regional issues. You have a very important regional summit coming up. You're going to chair the ASEAN. What does that mean for Malaysia? What would the focus really be?
We are fortunate because in ASEAN, for me, as I see it, probably the most cohesive sub-regional grouping in the world. Very close relation with the leaders, and even potential leaders, the new Prime Minister of Thailand and Singapore, Indonesia. Although you have that transition, but the contact and the engagement has been there long before. Bombong Marcos. I think I'm fortunate to inherit this, and common understanding, even on a more explosive view, like an issue like Myanmar, which I did refer to briefly with Prime Minister Modi. We still have this 5-point consensus. We're not adamant like the Europeans on the democratic transition. We give them time. But in terms of security and stopping these atrocities against ethnic minorities, they're strong because it's affecting us.
It is indeed.
Yes, there's 200,000 over Rohingyas in Malaysia. And I believe so strongly in human rights and freedom, and therefore we'll have to protect them, but at the same time it's causing too much hardship and difficulty for us to contain this group. So the engagement has to continue. I think India will play its part. We will have to do it. Although there is no recognition in terms of the political power of the military junta. But I think we have no choice but to engage. And I certainly will be active with the consent of my colleagues in ASEAN. The parameters are set and priorities too in ASEAN, and most of it has been discussed extensively last year in Jakarta, and this year will continue. So that makes my job easier, I suppose.
Easier.
To contain, of course, we have a problem in the United States and China, the growing tension. But as long as we take this centrality role, continue to engage with both, and I think it should be all right to contain.
I will come back to the US-China question, but before that, has Prime Minister Modi been invited for the ASEAN? Because there's always an India-ASEAN summit.
Yes, in fact, I made a specific reference to the need for him to attend the ASEAN conference. He says, sure, my brother.
Okay, so he's already accepted the invitation.
Yes, and I'm very, very appreciative of that fact because his presence is important.
Why do you say that, sir? Why do you say his presence is important? And what's the role that you think India should be playing and can play in a world that is completely riddled with conflict?
Yeah. See, India is a beacon of democracy in the region, with, of course, the normal cynicism and limitations and criticism, but still, it is the beacon. And it has a long historical ties with the region. It is an important economy, growing economy. And when we see it, we need India's active participation. We need China and, of course, Japan, Korea, to a large extent. And in this ASEAN, normally, we'll have even the EU chief attending and the United States. So it's just not ASEAN, It's ASEAN +1, ASEAN +3, ASEAN +7. So it will be a very busy year for Malaysia. But the support of countries, including India, is, of course, critical to ensure that we are on the right track. And I've asked him and his colleagues to give whatever, advice or views so that we can conduct our affairs in a more efficient, practical manner.
Malaysia also intends to join another very important forum or bloc called the BRICS. What are the hurdles for Malaysia here?
No, right now, we have discussed with China, Russia, India. They're all supportive. Brazil, I think Lula is sending his foreign minister in the next few days. We are fortunate, Malaysia, because then people are supportive. Although I think they have not decided whether to accept as full membership or for now, other than the full membership, they call it partner member, whatever, temporarily prior to that. Because
an observer status?
Not observer, they call it member partner, whatever.
Okay.
Like, you ask me, I wouldn't understand that until they decide. I think they will decide in the next few months in Kazan. Prime Minister mentioned that to me too. But generally, I'm very pleased because people are very, probably they're more kind to me because after going through hell for many, many years. So I'm fortunate.
But is there resistance from a particular country for Malaysia joining BRICS, or is
right now, no.
No resistance.
Because the key players, of course, Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa. All the five have indicated strongly they will support Malaysia.
Okay, that's good to know. But when it comes to China, you have made a path of your own when it comes to how to handle the United States of America, China, this fight for supremacy in the region. But there is a bilateral dispute, maritime dispute between Malaysia and China as well. How are you navigating that space where you're looking at the conflict or the dispute and yet engaging China? And the concerns that India and Malaysia have spoken of when it comes to maritime security, freedom of navigation, that was a part of your joint statement yesterday. How are you navigating all these spaces with China and the Chinese aggression that we see in the region, in these waters?
Geeta, your understanding is not to ask me difficult questions. But anyway, Malaysia is central. We have issues all our borders.
Yes, you do.
Yeah, then why is it when it comes to a particular country, say China, it becomes so contentious? So I take it like, we have a problem in Brunei going the next week and we settle whatever we can, otherwise we postpone. But we remain great friends and partners. Similarly with Singapore, the ongoing, we are still having these annual bilateral meetings, and there have been lots of progress and a lot of activities understanding. In fact, we have a special economic zone that caters for the interests of Malaysia and Singapore in particular. But notwithstanding, we still have unresolved matters. Water, the flight zone, things like that.
But the 9-dash line is a Chinese creation. So it is a bigger concern because it concerns the entire region and how China really behaves in these waters with various countries. So how are you navigating that space?
We don't need to navigate too much because we don't have actually a serious problem. Because they do claim, we do claim. I've said it to President Xi Jinping, and of course, in my interaction with Premier Li Qiang, which has been, I should say, good, positive. I said, we have to resolve it bilaterally and multilaterally. So we use bilateral mechanism, but more so within ASEAN, multilateral, when it's possible. The only skirmishes we have is with the Philippines, China with the Philippines. So we continue to engage with both to contain this friction. But as far as Malaysia is concerned, we have not encountered any serious issues with any of our neighbors, including China. And we want to keep it that way. Because we take a position of centrality. Of course, we are a lot concerned because my strong views on Gaza and the hypocrisy, particularly of the West.
Absolutely.
But our relation with the United States remains strong and the investment is still number one.
Okay, then let me ask you your US-China question that you were responding to earlier. In this fight for supremacy that you see between US and China, what is the role or position that Malaysia holds? And I ask you this because it's not just US-China anymore. You're also looking at two Asian giants who don't share the best relations today, which is India and China as well. You're here in India. You met the Chinese premier not so long ago. And then you engage the United States of America, and you're also going to Russia. So Malaysia actually is engaging the world today. But in this conflict of the world, how is Malaysia positioned when it comes to US versus China, China versus India?
Why force us to take sides? I mean, we will defend our territorial integrity. We will maintain our centrality. We know that in this globalized world, we need to interact with everyone. America remains to be a very important country, both in trade, investments, education, technology, AI. China is emerging as a major power in the region. I've placed a lot of importance to India, even contrary to my past and my predecessors. In fact, we've elevated at that level, which means, and in Europe, of course, Infineon decided to have the largest investments out of Germany, 6 billion euros into Malaysia on semiconductor at the higher end. I think we should continue to do that precisely. That does not stop us from talking about gross injustices or hypocrisy or contradictions, but we know the limits, and it should not be at the expense of the bilateral relations and interests of the common man and woman.
You're going for the EEF, the Eastern Economic Forum. You'll be in Russia. You'll be meeting President Putin. The West did not take very kindly to Prime Minister Modi visiting Moscow. And then you're going to be there with the same man who they criticize. How are you looking at what the response is going to be of the West over here? And your position on the Russia-Ukraine war, because you just made a reference to it.
Well, Prime Minister Modi has been extremely kind to me in sharing his views about this issue, Ukraine, Russia. And of course, with that experience, I've met Putin a number of times. And I said to my American friends, look, Prime Minister Modi went to Russia, Saudi MBS, UAE and BRICS, King of Bahrain. Why poor me gets into unnecessary trouble? You see, I'm just following suit to make sure that we are all friends. So that would be my position. I mean, India, Bahrain, whatever, umpteen other countries continue. And they have BRICS for that matter. And then why do you then harass us on these issues? But to be fair, America has not openly, although they do express their concern. Okay, I do respect that as much as I do have expressed a lot of our concern against some of these policy of the United States.
Coming to the policy of the United States of America, you have made your concerns quite open when it comes to the Israel-Hamas war. The number of deaths are only increasing. It's counting and more. And we are yet to see a ceasefire, despite the fact that there are talks that are being held, promises that are being made, assurances that are being made. But it counts for nothing if the action of Israel continues within Gaza.
Yeah, last few days, the Prime Minister of Qatar called and updated me some of the latest initiative in the series of programs. Then, following that, I spoke to the Hamas spokesperson because the chief is in the tunnel somewhere, not easily contactable. Then to the president of Iran, first to say that, my personal view is that we must support at all costs the end of this attack, continued atrocities. And the ceasefire is, of course, conditional for both parties to agree. There had been slight progress when the Prime Minister of Qatar mentioned to me Blinken was in his way to meet Netanyahu again, and he was to leave for Tehran the following day. Of course, we support. I mean, when I spoke both to Hamas and Tehran, the president, I said, of course, generally Malaysia wants an end. We are a bit far away. The issues are closer to these countries. But it's caused a huge issue because America seems to be quite serious, genuine in terms of securing peace, but they still send $20 billion of arms to kill people at the Palestinians. I fail to understand that, frankly. I have lots of friends in America. I used to teach there, Georgetown, and I am, of course, completely, in terms of feeling devastated by this failure of the international community in the name of democracy, human rights, but actually decisions based on color, on creed.
Yes, because the opinion changes when it's Ukraine and then when it's Gaza. Yes, you've spoken of that as well. Before I let you go, you have engaged the Hamas. You've also met the Hamas leadership in the past. How do you characterize the Hamas? Because the West does call it a terrorist organization. Also, how do you characterize the 7th October attack? Because that also many countries have characterized as a terrorist attack.
So was ANC, Mandela, so was IRA, so was the freedom fighters, Gandhiji, were all subversives and if not terrorists. It depends how you perceive the issue. So I don't consider them as terrorists. They are fighting for their freedom. If you're strong about terrorism, what about colonization? What about politics of dispossession? Why these double standards? If you're strong in that, if you really believe in freedom, against colonization, why is it that it takes more than 60, 70 years to give them the basic right and freedom? So these are, to me, fundamental issues. Now, whether I condone atrocities committed by any side, I don't. And in my exchanges with Hamas, I always tell them, as friends, I say, look, I'm for peace. I'm peaceful resolution. But if they ask me if one province in Malaysia is being attacked by a neighbor, do you then say, let's negotiate? But there are issues, there are problems there. And so don't play victim when you are the oppressor, the aggressor. To me, first stop the colonization. There's no way can a sane person in this day and age condone aggression, colonization, but it is being condoned. And they give umpteen reasons to rationalize that. Just because of 7th October. The atrocities were committed long before that. You know the Nakba, you know. So why this, attitude of not only condescending, but giving the impression that people are all nuts and semi-ignorant. India, for example, is a vibrant democracy. You have been, a strong proponent of, from the days of Nehru, non-aligned and wanting, and I that's why I'm very comfortable speaking here about the issues of freedom and colonization. So that's why South Africa is taking that position, and Mirabel, and Brazil, and now many countries in Europe, Spain, Portugal, Ireland.
Recognition of Palestine, is that the need of the hour? More than anything else and more than anything ever?
Yeah, first secure freedom, because you can recognize, of course, most countries have recognized Palestine. But then without the basic freedom, well, Geeta, I'm sorry, but then I have really, now that I'm here, struggling all my life about human rights and freedom, I suddenly see that people, the international community seem helpless. What's wrong? The deficit in terms of compassion from ethical and moral principles in life. To me, politics, after what I went through, is completely irrelevant without freedom, justice, compassion.
Prime Minister, sir, this is a rare moment. So before I let you go, I'm not going to ask you a question, but maybe a message to the youth of India and the world. What is it that you want them to focus on, look at, deliver?
Well, my just young. I used to be young a long time ago. I don't claim to have the expertise or...
Age is not a factor here.
Yes. My wife
you're an
reminds me
example.
that. My wife used to remind me, age is mind over matter. If you don't mind, it does not matter.
Okay.
All right. But to the youth, I think is your future. You must decide now. You want to secure freedom. You understand justice. Of course, you have to study. They talk about energy transition, which is not relevant 20 years ago, or digital transformation, which is completely not a subject in the past. But you have to address these issues. But more so, if it's India, it's a great country, culturally vibrant. You have produced great leaders and sages for centuries. Do not lose them. Do not lose sight of that wisdom. Because the failure of many countries is when they cut off the legacy, what you call turath, the legacy of the past, by thinking that all the solutions will be rendered only for the present. So I believe that you have that tenacity and conviction to move forward.
Prime Minister Anwar Ibrahim, thank you so much for joining us here on India Today Network.
Thank
Indeed,
you,
a
Geeta.
pleasure.
Thank you very much.